good morning, and welcome to the Health Conference 2.0. It's an absolute pleasure having you here. My name is Maxine, and I am your guide and host for this conference in Dubai 2024. Welcome to a gathering that promises to enrich, educate, and connect you with the best in the industry. We're setting a new standard this year by presenting an unparalleled roster of experts, innovators, and healthcare leaders who are set to transform your perspectives and inspire innovation. This has been made possible because of our partners, of course, our bronze sponsor, LifeSpin GmbH. Let's give them a huge round of applause for sponsoring this event. Yes. All right, I think, did everyone have some coffee? Did you have something to eat? Feeling still a bit sleepy? Yes? There's a lot of people in this room, okay? So we have to give a little bit more energy than that. I know it's the first session, but we'll get to know each other and we'll be friends by the end, I promise. Also, a special shout out to all of you in the room, our attendees, who are in the special space with me today. While you are here, let's make sure you engage with the Health 2.0 conference community using the hashtag Health2Conference and to share your journey. We are massive here on LinkedIn, so I hope you all have your profiles ready, yes, because we're going to be exchanging contacts and we're going to be lifelong friends. Now prepare to engage, learn, and be inspired as we explore the future of healthcare together as we begin the first round of sessions. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our insightful panel to the stage as we discuss the urbanization and mental health. We're going to be examining the relationship between city living and psychological well-being. Our panelists will study the relationship between city living and psychological well-being, exploring how our urban environments influence our mental health. Stay tuned for a thought-provoking dialogue. Please welcome our session's moderator, Dr. Abik Moitra. If you are on the panel, the stairs on the stage is to my right, which is your left. So I'm also going to be welcoming Dr. Amish Purit. Yes? Purohit, my mistake. Francis, there you are. I didn't get a chance to speak to you earlier, so I have no idea how to pronounce your last name, and I wanted to save myself from embarrassment. All right, Francis. Yes, and Dr. Tanvir Hassan. There he is. Round of applause. And lastly, Genevieve. Genevieve Lai, there she is. Hello. Oh, yes. I'm not sure what this means. Give me a second. And I'd like to invite Sandra D. Smith as well. Very good. That is our entire panel. I'm going to be turning it over to Mr. Moitra. Have a good discussion.
Something that is impacting the entire population of 8.5 billion across the earth. So this is something that we begin with the day to day. I must also take this opportunity to thank everybody in this room, our colleagues for the day, who have made across oceans to ensure that this conference becomes successful. Maybe we should take an opportunity to thank each other and with a round of applause, and ourselves who have taken this effort to come here and be part of this conference. a round of applause, a like on the Instagram, a like on the Facebook, something we get appreciated with, results into release of something called a dopamine. Very important for our mental health. And mental health is the topic of discussion today in the light of the very, very important urbanization which is required for our economic growth. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the topic for discussion today, the urbanization and its impact on the mental health. Today, to discuss this particular topic, we have a very impactful and important panel here, which has not only practiced or being part of this subject discussion for many years, but is also a very transatlantic, transocean, coming from different countries, bringing different kind of experiences on the table. Before I go to introduce them, I must introduce myself, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Abhik Moitra. I'm director of a company called Healthians Research Center. We are based out of India. I'm also the founder and director of another company called HBG Medical Assistance, which is one of the largest medical assistance companies in India. Of course, Healthians is the largest home sample collection company and into laboratory business in India. I'm also the founding member of something called a Foundation of Healthcare and Wellness Promotion in India. With that, without wasting much time, I must come to introduce my panel, or rather, I'll be just naming, and you will just like to brief about yourself and a bit about the topic of what you think so that we can begin right away. To start with, if I may request, Francis, you to introduce yourself, and then just your introduction about this whole topic, what you feel about it, the importance of this discussion today, please. You need to move.
Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Francis, and my last name is called IJsakkers. So it's a difficult pronunciation. I'm from the Netherlands, and I am not a specialist on this topic, but I am a mother of two girls, two daughters, and one of the daughters had to do mental issues. She had 3 times in her life anorexia. And I think, for myself, I'm a good mother. But apparently, she had some issues and didn't feel the opportunity to speak to me about it. I work for over 40 years in healthcare environments, and I started my own business in 2009. I have a consultancy business in healthcare for interim management, for lean management, and I like to put some emphasis on the scientific publications. So I'm not an expert, but I can really read quite well. So I take you along later in the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francis. A very important factor of discussion within the family about mental health. How often people discuss with each other the emotional or the kind of sentimental trauma people are going through. We are going to come back to it, but before that, let's also welcome Sandra Smith.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Sandra Smith. I am the Vice President for the Mental Health Resource of Texas. We do business as Via Hope, and I am here to talk specifically about lived experience and what that looks like currently as things are changing and evolving throughout globally, nationally for the United States, but also globally, and what it looks like to utilize one's lived experience when having conversations about things such as urbanization of mental health, and what it looks like to utilize those lived experience to help other people when it comes to trauma, secondary trauma, what it looks like to train people to properly utilize that lived experience. So that's something that we do, and it's something that we're really excited. I also do consulting for the last 15 years on reentry. As you know, the United States has the largest population of folk that are incarcerated So we're looking to be able to help with the trauma surrounding that to help individuals in their recidivism rates.
The lived experiences, of course, that is going to be the way forward if we have to tackle mental health crisis in times to come. We are going to talk about it a little more. If I may kindly welcome Jen, who has come all the way from Australia to enlighten us on this topic. Jen, a little bit of introduction.
Thank you. So it's lovely to be here. I have over 30 years experience in healthcare particularly, but I have transitioned from healthcare into education, specifically around healthcare. I've led initiatives around particular cohorts of young people, and specifically alcohol and drug and mental health in homelessness. And I'm the director and I'm the lead trainer of Soul Anchorage, and we specialise in holistic health and education. And I'm really excited to be able to talk about the intersection of health, the community and the education system, and explore collaborative solutions to find building better communities.
Thank you so much, Jen. And I was talking to Jen before the conference began, and she was enlightening me that in the Australian culture, in the Aborigine, suicides are one common way of living, and it's very much accepted. But suicides today is one of the bigger reasons for death across the world, and it is directly related to mental health. We are going to talk a little more. Jen is a deadly combination of education, mental health, training, etc., etc. I'm sure she's going to bring all this topic. Which brings me to the next one, Mr. Amish Purohit, who is the president of Arcos Health. Your introduction, sir, and your brief about the topic.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Boy, they still haven't had their coffee yet. Okay. Well, I'm Dr. Amish Purohit. As Abhinav said, I'm the president and chief medical officer for Arcos Health. It is a population health company that manages over 500,000 lives. I've been a practicing physician for many years and seen many patients who've suffered from mental health conditions that have impacted their physical health as well. And so without good mental health, you can't have good physical health. And hopefully I can shed light today on what digital technologies have done to mental health, and talk a little bit about how we as human beings have evolved over time, whether we've evolved to be able to adapt to stress and mental health, or we haven't. So we'll talk about that during this session as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Purohit. Dr. Purohit, as the name suggests, you are also from India at some point of time, of course.
Yes, originally born in India, raised in the US.
And he spoke about the mental health and its impact on physical health. In Indian culture, as we spoke about the Australian culture, in Indian culture, it is said that health is not only about the physical health, it is also about the combination or the right balance between the physical health, the mental health, and the soul. And Dr. Amish actually brought in the fact how mental health is impacting the physical health. We are going to talk about it and the impact of the digital environment that we have. Next on the panel is Dr. Tanveer. Dr. Tanveer, a little bit of introduction about yourself and introductory lines, please.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm really glad to be a part of such a vibrant panelist. And today we'll be talking about mental health and all these issues. A little bit of background of myself. I'm a physician. I passed my med school from Bangladesh. Then I was in United States for almost 10 years. I was working in neuro-oncology for almost 4 years. After that, I started working in primary care settings, and it's been a long journey. And right now, we are developing a model which is value-based care model, and we are all familiar to that now. So I'm also founder of a health tech company, Icon. So what we're trying to do that how we can make a collaborative care model where primary care physicians can also play a significant role in terms of mental health. And one thing I would like to add here that I always used to believe that in our med school, in the anatomy dissection hall, there was a line that always reminds me that what the mind doesn't know, the eye cannot see. So I think at this stage, we really need to know more about mental health and we really need to destigmatize the mental health issues, and we need to talk more about it so we all understand the impact of mental health and how mental health and physical health are completely correlated and like playing significant role on each other. So yes, so that's about me, and we'll start the panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tanveer. Absolutely, the mental health and the physical health are totally correlated. But you also hail from Bangladesh, which is one of the, or rather, one of the most densely populated countries in the world. Population, ladies and gentlemen. So when you talk about mental health, there is a lot of data on internet. They talk about the cause and the consequences of this data. But when you look into the internet, the causes of this mental health crisis the world is going through, you rarely find some substantiated reasons behind it. But what today we will discuss is the possible causes of this mental health crisis. Population, as we spoke about, Bangladesh, India, China, and many other countries, the world is witnessing a population explosion. In last 50 years, we have gone up to 8.6 billion from being 5.4 billion. It's an explosion. Francis, if I may ask, how this population explosion and the resultant migration that is happening from one country to another, or rather, if we put from the lesser developed areas, villages, towns, etc., to more developed urbanized cities, how this migration is impacting the mental health of these people, of the people who have been suffering. And it is estimated by WHO that in next 10 years, 1 out of every 4 people will be going through this crisis in some point of their lives. How population and the migration to urbanized countries, urbanized cities are impacting the mental health, if you may.
Thank you for asking. No pressure. It's a large question. As I said, I'm from the Netherlands, and that's in Europe. And over the last 2 years, we had a lot of migrants, especially from Ukraine, and therefore from all over the world. So small cities, large cities in the Netherlands are obligated to invite migrants. And I think we are a hospitality kind of people in the Netherlands, but it's nice to have them, but not in my backyard. And I think that's where it starts. So, on your question, I looked things up, and the 8.2 billion people nowadays will grow, and the prediction is over 10 billion people. I looked it up, and gladly our world is able to feed all those 10 billion people, because I think there it will start. Good nutrition. It's also good for your mental well-being. And then the UN gave a report, and from those 8.6 billion people, there are 280 million people, refugees around the world in 2022. So imagine, over 280 million people are not in their hometown, are not with their loved ones, are not with their own values, are not with their own food, are not with their own culture. So I think it's devastating at the moment. The UN also pointed out that there will be some ethical dilemmas, so as cultural, language, economics, racial, and even administrative barriers. So we have to bear in mind over 280 million people. And then I read a lovely report from Psychology Health, and I go one step further to the urbanization. And in 2023, there was 55% city living on Earth. That will be in 2050, 76%. So the cities are growing and growing and growing. And in the Netherlands, we have a small problem. Actually, it's a large problem. There are not enough houses. So my daughter, she has a good job. She can't afford to buy a house because there aren't homes to buy. I looked up for the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations. And one of the goals is making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. I think it's a large goal. And for all the people who are listening, it's important to bear that in mind. So the large question you asked, how is it impacting mental health? It's only by imagining that you have to leave your home country, that you have to leave your home city, that you have to leave. That alone makes such an impact on your mental well-being. So that's my point of view on your first large question.
Thank you so much, Frances. The impact of leaving one's home, leaving one's country, leaving one's culture, and then trying to adjust into a different environment altogether does impact the mental health a lot. But what we are not thinking is there is a 280 million people who are getting impacted because of this, and the larger number, which is their families who they are not taking along with, the parents, sometimes children, sometimes spouses, brothers, sisters, etc. And they obviously are going to get impacted by when a loved one moves away. So the family system, the family value system as a movement to urbanization, more than often it is the young people who are going to the cities and living there, and the parents are left behind. Now this is going to impact their mental well-being also, which brings me to you, Sandra. Now we are seeing a changed family culture here because of this urbanization. The children are getting impacted. They are not getting to learn from their grandparents. The parents are giving less time to their children and less time to their parents. So there is a system which has gone wrong. How lived experiences, which is your expertise, is actually matching up this whole scenario?
Yes, thank you. It said it was working. I think it's important to remember when we have these conversations, we talked a little bit about stigma. We talked a little bit about what it looks like from a statistical perspective of what is really going on in this world. What I would like to just bring us a little bit closer to when we talk about lived experience and we talk about urbanization and we talk about the family dynamics that is changing because of the impact of the trauma, it all kind of comes back to the full circle when it comes to the medical model that I can't be whole and I can't be well if I'm not mentally well. I cannot be able to put these things together and have a quality of life if there's all of these other things externally that are going on. And the world says that I am not okay if I'm hearing voices. It says that I'm not okay if I'm sometimes depressed. It says I'm not okay if I'm simply just tired from work. It says I'm not okay if I actually want to leave my children at daycare a little bit longer because I just need a mental break from working and parenting and just living life. So when we have individuals that have experienced what we consider traumatic events as a result of mental health challenges, what we don't do is stigmatize them. What we don't do is label them. What we don't do is say that you people have a problem. What we do is we say, can you help another person based on the simple fact that I've been there and I've done it myself. So imagine for a moment, if all of the people, and I don't know anybody, I do not know one person that at some point in their life have not experienced some level of trauma, whether they recognize it or not. They have experienced some level of trauma. They have lived through an event that has affected and impacted them tremendously. And if we can then take those individuals, put them in a training, put them through in environments where there are people that have had similar lived experience and train them how to do it, give them continuing education credits, give them updated trainings, give them, they don't become clinical people. That's left up to the people with those credentials to handle the therapy and the psychiatry, even the case management. We consider those clinical perspectives of mental health. But literally having me say, you know what, I was severely, not clinically, but depressed. So having people understand the difference in being really tired and really sad as opposed to being clinically diagnosed by a medical professional, it's very different. But if I can say to someone, based on my lived experience, I think you might actually want to go see a professional. I think you might actually want to have that. It's not a judgment. It's not a diagnosis. It's simply, there was a time in my life when, ... And being able to connect those dots. When we talk about urbanization and the mental health, we could talk about the overpopulation and we can talk about things, again, that statistics tell us. We can all Google that. I'm sure you're already Googling the topic yourselves. But when we bring it home and we bring it into our families and we talk about intergenerational trauma and we talk about not having those conversations, which allows us to start to heal from those generational traumas, that's what's going to get us probably a little ahead of our facilitator, but that's what gets us to helping this. That's what gets us to having the conversation about what does it look like to start to heal from some of these things. I think we can all, again, agree on some of the causes, but what we at my organization and me personally is very passionate about is being able to start the healing and being able to have the conversations to begin the healing that nobody wants to talk about because traditionally those are just your crazy cousins. Those are the people that you don't talk to. They're just stay away from them. But no, they need to be embraced. And we need to have conversations because we need to understand what it looks like. And when we say peer support and we say lived experience, that's what we're talking about, is where can we find our place and our role in helping and partnering with the medical models to be able to give people a quality of life.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Quality of life. Those were your last words. You also talked about that depressed, but not clinically depressed, but only physically or tired or fatigued, or in simple words, overworked. As simple as that. Overworked, something that every person in the corporate world today talks about. And most of you sitting here is aspiring to be somebody in the corporate world, somebody in the whole system where you work. And urbanization has today become synonymous to corporatization. And when we are bringing up our children, say, you need to study more, you need to be successful in this life, we are only bringing them up to become one part of that corporate world or that fanciful world so that they can make a better living, they can live better, etc. We are training them to become rich. We are not training them to become peaceful. That's what brings me back to you, Jen, because you are from education. What would you have as comments to say about this? How should education and the resultant impact on making people more peaceful than rich can impact the times to come?
Thanks, Abhi. So I think that urbanisation and corporatisation has really impacted our education system really quite negatively. There actually is a lot of intense competition between schools themselves, and it creates a really high pressure environment for our young people, and it leads to a lot of anxiety and depression in our young people. Many teachers do not have training in behavioural management, and certainly not mental health support as part of a teaching curriculum, and that actually exacerbates our students' struggles in that system. Schools operate from a deficit model. We're focused on the shortcomings of our young people, not actually their strengths. And I think that this approach adds a lot to their stress, and they have a lot of feelings of inadequacy, and it really is straining their mental well-being. The priority at the moment in our education system is around academic achievement and financial success, absolutely, over personal fulfillment, and this perpetuates a cycle of stress and unhappiness, absolutely. This impact then extends to our families and our communities overall, and increased mental health issues among our students also affect our family relationships and our family dynamics. In Australia, there was a report in 2020, and it said there was an increase between 7 and 13% of violence against parents, where the young person is the perpetrator. 10% of police call-outs for domestic violence, the young person is the perpetrator against an adult or a family member. At one point in the city I live in, one of our regions, the police call-outs for family domestic violence, 80% of them were the result of a young person assaulting a parent. So I really think communities face so many challenges to support their young people, and the school system really does need a bit of an overhaul, and we'll talk about that next, I think. But I think we really need to consider the lack of teacher training and the impact that that actually has on our young people. And as parents are working more, there is a lot of responsibility on our schools to do a lot of the upbringing of our young people, and we're not fulfilling that obligation.
Thank you so much, Jen. Responsibility on how do we bring up our younger generation up. The resultant violence within the family against loved one is something it was not heard of before. Or are we hearing of it more these days? Because earlier the social media or the news media channels were not available. People today have more access to data and more access to social media, which brings me to Dr. Purohit. How do you think the social media, the OTT platform, the digital world, specifically when the children has gone during the COVID period online, they were far more exposed to online platforms during that period. How did that exposure to the whole set of digital world impacted the mental health of the upcoming generation?
Well, thank you for the question. And initially, when I think about it, it's like, well, all this digital health, information overload, it's causing so much stress in our society. But with everything, there's pros and cons. And so, obviously, with the rise of social media, we have an innate preference or need to belong. And so, all our young people want a sense of belonging. And so when we look at Facebook, now, personally, I don't do a lot of social media or Instagram, but we have people that do Instagram. We're looking at TikTok. Everybody's looking, and they want to share what they're doing. They want to share what they're eating. And you know what they want in response for people that are looking at it? Did you like it? Did you get a heart? How many did you get, right? It gives them a sense of satisfaction. But one of the things that digital platforms has done is it's replaced in-person connections. You've got virtual connections that happen, and we all know the power of human touch is imperative. Every human being needs that in their life because it has so many benefits. And we found that in COVID, when people were isolated, they were on lockdown, they couldn't go and socially interact with others. In Arizona, where I live, even though there was a lockdown, people escaped and went to the local bars that were open, and they were spreading the disease. So when I think of digital health, obviously there are other downsides like cyberbullying that occurs amongst the youngsters. There's privacy issues as well, right? You're talking online, you're loading your information. What about if someone steals it? If I were to ask each one of you that I'm going to take your phone from you for the rest of the conference, you guys would say, hell no. It causes a lot of anxiety. And I guarantee when you wake up in the morning, one of the first 2 or 3 things that you do is you look at your phone. It's like, who texted me? What did I miss out on? What's the headlines? So we have now gotten so attached to the digital technologies that it's hard to put this stuff away. People have camps out there, retreats out there, well, they will take away your cell phones, your tablets, your computers, and it'll be a retreat for a week just so you can get away from the stimulation. But it's not very comfortable. Even I get up in the morning and I look at my phone. So I think, it puts a lot of pressure and stress on you, which can lead to mental health illnesses, especially stress, anxiety, and depression. However, if we look at digital health and the solutions that it provides, it also helps. How many people benefit from therapy? They can get online therapy. They can get telehealth consults, right? You can order food. You don't have to leave the house to order food. You can have groceries delivered to your house. You can order a ride off your phone. So the technology has provided a lot of convenience and access for us, which takes a little bit of the stress and pressure off of us. So to finally answer your question, I think it has worsened in some aspects mental health, but in other aspects it's also helped.
Thank you so much, Dr. Purohit. It has worsened in some aspects. One thing is for sure, we are sleeping less. Because before we go to sleep, we are just scrolling through reels and everything else, which is taking a lot of time out of our sleep. 7.5, 8 hours is something that improves our immunity. Am I right, Dr. Purohit?
That's correct. So the blue light that comes out of your cell phones, your tablets, interferes with your sleep, and a lot of people that are on their phones at night, they have a hard time sleeping, and so they get less sleep. And you need sleep, as you said, to recover and build your immunity.
So one thing is for sure, on the worst side, one very common impact of digital media is it is making us sleep less, which is also impacting everybody's mental health. But at the same time, Dr. Purohit did mention that it is also smoothing out a lot of aspects of our life. It is helping us have access to therapies which normally people can't have. But I am not sure if this is also happening to those people who have aged. And to the aged people, all the public policies across the globe are trying to help people live longer. They are making medicine far more accessible. We are bringing out a lot more type of medications where people can fight cancers, cardiac issues, neurodegenerative diseases, etc., so that people can live longer. But is living longer also equivalent to living healthy? Dr. Tanveer, is the increased age, are we increasing the suffering, or are we increasing only the age, or are we actually increasing healthy living?
Thank you, Dr. Avik. So here, I just want to start saying that life is a full cycle. So we start from early age and we age gradually. And it's actually, there are two words. One is life expectancy, and then is life expectations, right? So with age, I think with the advent of medical science and all, our life expectancy is increasing, and we are living longer. But what Dr. Avik was asking, that whether we are adding quality of life or not. So with age, we are seeing that a lot of these aging people, they're suffering significantly. And also, as Dr. Purohit just mentioned, the digital health and digitalization, everything. So sometimes there is a huge generational gap. So if you look at the millennials, baby boomers, Gen Z, so they talk different language, right? So even like the millennials cannot connect with the Gen Z. And if the older people, when they are talking to the younger generation, they're actually not at the same level. So I think it's significantly affecting the mental health for the aging people. But what we can do here? I think here we're talking about what is the best solution, right? So as I mentioned earlier, that we need to talk more about mental health. And there are a couple of things rather than medication. So when this older generation, they're suffering from depression or dementia or degenerative diseases, what they need, the only thing I think is that support, is that those kind words, someone beside them saying that it's okay. Because personally I experience in family that when these older people, they're suffering from dementia, it's the surroundings, it takes a lot of toll on the surrounding people, the family, because the caregivers, they're also going through a lot because they're saying the same thing over and over again. And you are thinking that, like your words making sense to them, but not necessarily, because you are saying something, they're understanding something else. So the more the life expectancy is increasing, it's not always that the quality of life is increasing. But as I'm from New York, and what I saw that in different primary care settings, what we are trying to do right now is we are connecting these behavioral health counselors, the psychologists, the psychiatrist, and they're in a collaborative care model so that they're all on the same page. And because these patients, they're definitely seeing their primary care physicians, and the primary care physicians are actually connecting them with the behavioral health counselors. And it's actually, there is a way that now we are designing a tool that you actually can find your right counselor. So that it's important that whenever you are talking, they understand your language. They're from the same background, the cultural or same financial situation, so that they understand what you are talking about. So I think the model we are using in New York, that is creating significant impact on the older generation. And we are looking forward to going across the different states to see that whether this is the right model or not. And globally, I think as Dr. Avik mentioned that Bangladesh, when I was in Bangladesh, I saw that it's like the most densely populated country. And then when I went to New York, it's the most diverse population. So in these two settings, what I realized that it's very important to connect all those dots, because in the healthcare system, the dots are not connected, and especially among the clinical and mental health system. So if we can connect the dots, I think significantly we can reduce the burden of life expectancy and quality of health together.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tanveer. Having the psychological access during the treatment, giving more support, obviously everything comes at a cost. So there is one who is sick. When we talk of cancer, an old parent has gone through a chemotherapy. The cancer is supposed to come back, and it will come back at some point of time. And that it will come back far more impactful. So one, you are seeing your loved one dying in front of your eyes. You want them to live more. And while you are helping, you are only increasing the suffering of that person for a few extra days. And also going through an economical suffering, specifically in developing world like Bangladesh, you're coming from where 400,000 people are traveling across the border to get healthcare access. it is also making them suffer economically and mentally when they see people. So there is, a catch-22 situation we have all arrived at. We want people to live more, at the same time we cannot make them live healthy. Um, Francis, you just spoke about the impact of immigration and family, how it impacted. Very shortly, because we are running short of time, is there any way to come out of this crisis? Can this be reversed? Is there a possibility of coming out of this epidemic called mental health issue?
Thanks again for this large question.
And,
And
to
of
be
course-
answered very shortly.
Yes, I give a short answer. Of course, I looked it up. I think we all have to consider post-COVID surveys. There are, after COVID, when a lot of people are experience mental health issues, we can learn from that. There was a large survey in India on migrants post-COVID, and there were 4 topics. There was an impact on livelihoods, lifestyle, migration prospects, and gender aspects. And I think there is a quick solution, and that is lifestyle. Only when we look at the blue zones in the world, where people live longer, they have social connections, they eat a plant-based diet, they exercise a lot. So I think it's such a quick solution. It's only one solution. And I looked it again up. When you experience, I'm not saying you have to eat a plant-based diet, but the numbers say when you do, and it's a healthy plant-based diet, then you experience less anxiety and mental health issues. So, I'm not saying I could solve the migration problems, but I am inviting all of you to consider, first thing, pay attention, real attention to your neighbor. Pay real attention to a migrant. And then perhaps we can promote a little bit healthier diets. That was in short my answer.
Thank you so much, Francis. The Japanese way of living, that is what you were talking about. They live longer, yet they live healthy because of the 4 points. 1, they are more into physical activities. They take a lot of natural tea. They contribute a part of their earning into community service, and then mandatorily they spend at least 1.5 hours with families and friends. Am I right? That's the way of living you were talking about. Well, in urbanization, I am not sure how much this is possible because you spend so much time in traffic. We all experience it on an everyday basis. Sandra, with so much time spent on traffic, leaving us less time with our families and friends, what are your suggested coping mechanism with this crisis? Very quickly, please.
I would say call Via Hope, the mental health resource of Texas, and we can help individuals, again, start the healing process. That is it for me. It's very short. Allow people to be in a safe environment so that they can start having conversations that can lead to the healing of the trauma, which will enable folk, again, to have a quality of life.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Jen, if we go to experts like them who are going to help us, obviously you need money in your pocket because you need to pay a fee. So when you are educating your children to earn more money, they become far more ambitious, and then they are trying to work extra hard. Sandra talked about fatigue. Are we in a catch-22 situation here? Are we fighting mental crisis in future, or are we creating it far more with the help of modern education, which is, we are imparting to our children?
I think if we continue the way that we're going to exacerbate it significantly. I think the education system we're currently working with was created in the Industrial Revolution to train us to work in factories, and that's no longer relevant. I think schools can still be extremely competitive. I think if we incorporate mental health and well-being into our schools and into our teacher curriculums, it will make it have a significant impact. And realistically, if our young people are happy in their education and thriving, the schools themselves will thrive as a result of the student results. And we all know that if people do what they love, they will be successful and they will also be happy.
Thank you so much. Success and happiness is what we are looking forward to. Dr. Amish, we spoke about the impact of digital media on, but today it is digital media. In past, if you look at, there were famines, there were droughts, there were wars, there were displacement, there were floods. So there has been a reason for mental health crisis in times immemorial. So are we having more mental health cases now, or are we recognizing these numbers now? What is the scenario here?
Yeah, so I would say that, since the dawn of time, since humans have walked this earth, I'm sure that mental health has existed. Over time, I think we have become better at diagnosing mental health diseases. There's plenty of cultures in the world that historically would have attributed mental health disease to some type of possession or spirit. All these cultures have that. And now with the, and for a long time there's been a stigma around mental health. So people didn't go out and seek help because of that stigma. And now that that stigma is still there, but people are more open to acknowledging that they have a mental health disorder. I mean, you see this in the public spotlight as well, with athletes coming out and thanking their therapist after winning a championship. And so it's starting to become more normative, and that people are seeking help. And I think that it's our ability that we have gotten better at diagnosing and treating these conditions. Not that the incidence of mental health has increased, it's just that we are better at diagnosing it now.
Thank you so much. Last question to you, Dr. Tanveer. We are better at diagnosing it. We are better in accepting it. Is there a solution to this crisis which is beyond therapy or beyond medicine? Is there something that we can do to help this situation? Because otherwise it is only going to add more economical crisis. Very quickly.
Absolutely. Answering to that question, I'd like to mention value-based care. So when we are saying value-based care, what is the value? So when we are talking about value, one of the most important component is mental health. And when we're talking about health-seeking behavior, so right now the culture in the patients and the doctors is two points. One is it's more doctor-centric care in most of the places. And second thing is sickness-seeking behavior. So whenever, it's like I am definitely taking my car every 3 months for maintenance, but we are not thinking that health is also same like that. So why I'm not actually visiting healthcare facility or seeing a counselor or see a doctor regularly, right? So I think health-seeking behavior, especially mental health-seeking behavior from the part of the patients, to make them more proactive and enhance the patient engagement. And from the doctor's part, I think to address that this is patient-centric care rather than doctor-centric care. So from both part, the caregiver and the care receiver, if they can actually correlate to each other, I think these problems will be significantly reduced.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tanveer and the remaining panelists. The conclusive remarks is to solve any problem, first of all, we need to acknowledge that there is a problem, and the problem exists. There is no doubt. The numbers show them. Solution to this problem is multi-dimensional. One, the family support system needs to be there, the education support needs to be there, the lived experiences on the therapeutic and the medicinal support needs to be there. One of the research done, and that is my concluding because I did not get to say my own remarks, one of the research conducted in India in last 2 to 3 years' time, because being the most populous country today in the world has its own issues. But people who have been more closer to nature, more closer to the old value systems have far lesser mental issues. These days, more and more people are accessing Ayurveda, for that matter, wellness and preventive health care. They go there for simply to get off fatigue, get off mental depression. They do simple therapies like Shirodhara, Abhangam, etc., etc. And these people not only are living more healthily, living longer, and they are far less depressed or anxious. That, ladies and gentlemen, going back to the nature, going back to our roots, probably is one answer we can find today. And in different words, you all said the same thing. Thank you so much, dear panelists. Thank you so much, dear audiences. Unfortunately, we do not have the time to take questions, but over to you, madam.
Thank you so much.
Please.
Yes, indeed. A huge thank you to Mr. Moitra and our panelists. Thank you so much. If you could make your way this side to the stage. And